So now we are going to do international cuisine. And I've lived in a lot of different places and traveled to a lot of places. And so I've always had a gift. When I would go to a restaurant, I could usually I could eat the food and I could figure out what was in it and replicate it. So that's what I've done, all my life. I've had a big catering business and did fancy parties and so forth where I could replicate these things. So that's what I'm going to share, some of the things that, some of the herbs and spices and just different ways to make food really taste like it tastes in some of these countries. Okay, so culinary medicinal herbs and spices. All herbs are medicinal. So we're going to talk about ingredient combinations, flavor enhancements, and cultured foods. And if you think about it, in history, nowadays in America with the standard American diet, we're not getting all of these medicinal foods, including the herbs and spices and all the fresh stuff, and even the dried, these things were helping our bodies stay fine-tuned and keeping our organs from degenerating. Okay. So flavorings. What I always recommend is just look up herbs and spices for specific international cuisines. I'm going to share some with you, but we'd be up here for 2 days if I were going to try to share everything. And then adapting recipes to nutritarian style, that's really quite easy. You just, you eliminate the oils, and if there's cream, you just replace it with some kind of nuts, blended nuts. So you're going to eliminate sugar, dates. You're going to eliminate oils, replace it with nuts, cream with nuts to get that, because you do want fat in your food, of course, good fat, and there's a special mouth feel to food that's fat. And for example, chocolate, cocoa powder. If you mix cocoa powder with just some water, you could even mix it with sugar and water if you wanted to. It's not a good thing to do, but if you taste it, it doesn't have this rich chocolate taste that you get if you taste a dark chocolate bar. Well, that's the fat combined with the sweet, combined with the cocoa. That fat brings out that rich cocoa flavor. So that's why when I use cocoa, I will combine it with nuts so I can get that fat in there, or an avocado, and that'll bring out that nice flavor. Okay, so I just told you a flavor releasing technique. Okay, so culinary medicinal herbs and spices. You want to become acquainted with international culinary herbs and spices, not only to learn about them, but when you learn about them and you learn about all their medicinal, amazing benefits, this inspires you and makes you want to do it even more. Makes you just want to go out and go to the spice shop and you just come home with all different kinds of spices. But you can find out with with the internet, you can just learn anything. And again, you're going to adapt it to nutritarian style, but you can look up anything. You can look up Southern Italian, Sicilian, Northern Italian, French, and you can look at some of the things they use. Like the French, for example, use a lot of garlic, and they'll roast that garlic in olive oil or butter to get that. But you can just roast roast garlic and get that roasty flavor. That's very much like the French, because if you walk into a French restaurant, it has that roasty garlic smell. Actually, the French use garlic far more than the Italians. Oh yeah, they're the big garlic users. So then you can get cookbooks, cooking magazines, websites, and books on the culinary and medicinal benefits of herbs and spices to really inspire you. And I always like, if I can't figure something out and I go to a restaurant, which I don't do very much anymore, but when I used to, I would ask, what did you use in this? Where did you get this particular spice? It's almost, something I'll describe it, and then they'll tell me. They're usually pretty happy to tell you. They're flattered. And when you go to herb and spice shops, you want to stop and sniff things. You want to see if it's fresh, because it should kind of hit you. When you screw open that top of those bulk herb and spice sections, it should just be, it should smell wonderful. And do you know that even inhaling these aromatic herbs and spices, many of them have compounds in them that will affect your brain. Okay, so just here's a typical, how many of you all have been into a spice store? Okay, so there's kind of a typical spice store, and you can just wander around and sniff all kinds of things. I love doing that. Like chili powders and the chilies, the different types of chilies, to smell the different types of chili powders. Amazing. A huge difference between Spanish paprika and Hungarian sweet paprika. Smell it. Smell the Spanish paprika and then smell the Hungarian sweet. Big difference. I only use Hungarian sweet. I don't care for the Spanish paprika. So culinary herbs and spices have some of the highest antioxidant levels. So just think what you're given, but just these, and you don't need much. It's not like many people think they've got to do all these herbs and spices, and some of them, can't even get toxic, like tarragon can be. Some of them, when you do too much, it can get toxic and can become toxic, and then some of them, of course, are somewhat contaminated. But you don't need these huge amounts to get the benefits. Just what you use, that's pleasantly seasons your food. Okay, so preferably you want to purchase organic herbs and spices from a reputable supplier. If you can find one online, maybe ask Dr. Furman if he knows somebody, and just order from them. You'll get it. It'll be nice and fresh, because there really are some contaminants in a lot of the herbs and spices. They're contaminated by lead and some other heavy metals. But some of this we can't avoid. So what we do is we eat nutritarian so our body will detoxify itself. Okay, so turmeric. Everybody in here know about turmeric? Has it gotten enough press by now? Okay, well, turmeric is a very powerful anti-inflammatory spice. It's been, written about online, health magazines, and so forth. It has anti-cancer benefits as well, and it's the whole food turmeric. There are different ways that they do these spices medicinally. Sometimes they do what's a standardized version, which is more like pharmaceutical. That's where they'll isolate out the active ingredient in it. And then what I've read and what I'm seeing is that it seems to be more powerful when you have the whole compound. Now, there may be some isolated, like curcumin, which is in the turmeric. That's one of the active ingredients in it. So sometimes you can have curcumin and then add the turmeric, because it helps the synergistic effect, which Dr. Furman, I'm sure, has talked to you about with it. So that's just one of the things I want to say. It's not always best to have the isolated herb. Turmeric is the primary ingredient in Indian curries. That's what gives it that beautiful yellow color, the Indian curries. And you can color food with turmeric. You don't want to do too much. You can do a little bit. Like if you want to make something kind of yellow, light yellow or creamy, you can put a little turmeric in it. But if you use too much, you start getting flavor. Okay, so herbs and spices for everything. Use herbs and spices to flavor for health benefits, of course. And you know that black pepper dramatically boosts the availability of the inflammatory turmeric. So when you do this, you could put a little pepper in that. Little black pepper, just to boost the turmeric bioavailability for inflammation. And that's really good for those of you who suffer from inflammation, which will go away as you're on this longer, but in the beginning it can really help reduce some of the symptoms. And then I went over normal seasoning amounts. Rosemary, ginger, turmeric, and clove reduce inflammation. You don't need to have a whole bunch of it, just what you would normally put in your food. Use the tarragon herb in moderation. Some studies are showing that by having too much tarragon, like if you ate it every day, you always want to have tarragon in your salad or this or that, but having it just on occasion when you want tarragon in something. And then just one half teaspoon of rosemary can improve cognitive brain function. This is amazing stuff with these herbs. And it doesn't take much. And even inhaling the scent of some herbs can enhance brain function. I was in the kitchen and we had some thyme in there, and I was taking the stems. I'd taken it off the stems, and I was just rubbing the stems in my hand and just inhaling it. When you're cooking in the kitchen, you're fooling with this stuff. Smell it, experience it, enjoy it. And know that you're doing wonderful things for yourself as you do it. Okay, so you want to spice things up, and I told you some of the reasons for that. Capsaicin is the compound responsible for the heat in there. And seasoning with peppers can reduce the salt craving. And also, there's some recent studies are showing that in the past they thought that peppers could cause ulcers and stomach problems. But now they're finding that they actually may benefit digestive and cardiovascular health, and even help with long-term cancer prevention. And it may even help with weight loss. So red pepper, when not in an inflamed state, let's say if you have an ulcer or you're inflamed, don't dump a bunch of red pepper down. This is really for when you're not in an inflamed state, that you can have a lot of pepper. Okay, so it may, and part of the reason it helps the digestive tract is it desensitizes it. So people with a very sensitive digestive tract can start to gradually add up and eat more peppers, and hopefully it will help desensitize, and you won't be so sensitive to things. Okay, you want to remove the seeds to decrease the heat in peppers. Like if you're doing jalapenos, if you want it really hot, leave the seeds in, or leave part of the seeds in. But most of the heat is really in those seeds. So you want, and cooking beans, like pinto beans cooked with chipotles, oh my gosh, that's good. And if you've got the whole pepper intact and you don't want your beans real hot, just be careful and don't break open the pepper. You can put the whole pepper in there. Just don't break it open so the seeds will come out. But that's really good. I do like whole garlic and chipotle peppers in my beans. Really nice. Then put that seaweed, the kelp. Which one did I? Yes, put that in there to give it more of that umami. And again, gradually increase your tolerance to hot peppers. Just work up to it.